The BBC's attempt to spin the Trooping the Colour event as a rousing success for the royal family has completely backfired. Despite the broadcaster's claims of, massive crowds and thunderous cheers, the reality on the ground told a very different story. Attendees have come forward with photographic evidence showing that over 90% of the crowd were actually tourists, not passionate royal supporters. Furthermore, rather than cheers, the atmosphere was reportedly one of awkward silence, with many people holding signs of protest. Even a respected British journalist corroborated these accounts, undermining the BBC's glowing narrative. Now, the comments section on the BBC's own coverage is in uproar as the public soundly rejects the broadcaster's transparent propaganda and calls out the lies. It seems the monarchy's carefully curated media image is unravelling before our eyes. The BBC's failed spin on the Trooping the Colour event. The BBC's claims of massive crowds and enthusiastic cheers for the royal family at the Trooping the Colour event have been swiftly refuted by Brits who were actually present. Eyewitness accounts and photographic evidence have emerged, revealing a very different reality. Far from the BBC's rosy portrayal, over 90% of the attendees were reportedly tourists, not royal supporters, and there were no cheers, only an awkward silence punctuated by protest signs. Even a British journalist on the ground confirmed the BBC's version of events was completely at odds with the actual scene. As the public fury erupts in the BBC's comments section, it's clear the monarchy's media spin has completely unravelled, exposing the truth for all to see. The truth exposed. The crowd at the Trooping the Colour event was not the enthusiastic pro-monarchy gathering the BBC portrayed. In reality, over 90% of the attendees were tourists, not actual royal supporters. There were no roaring cheers or joyful celebrations. Only an awkward silence punctuated by protest signs expressing the public's discontent. Even a British journalist on the scene corroborated these facts, shattering the BBC's attempt to spin the disastrous event as a triumphant success for the royals. As the comments section erupts with Brits calling out the obvious lies, the monarchy's desperate media cover-up is quickly unravelling before the eyes of the world. The truth exposed. BBC's monarchist spin crumbles. Even a renowned British journalist has come forward to corroborate the truth about the Trooping the Colour event. This respected media figure, with first-hand experience at the ceremony, has blown the lid off the BBC's attempted cover-up. Far from the glowing celebratory portrayal peddled by the broadcaster, the journalist's account paints a very different picture. One of an overwhelmingly tourist-filled crowd, bereft of the enthusiastic royal support the BBC had claimed. Rather than the thunderous cheers the network described, the journalist reported an atmosphere of awkward silence, punctuated only by the occasional protest sign. This eyewitness testimony has completely shattered the monarchy's media spin, exposing the reality that the public is no longer willing to swallow the royals' carefully crafted narratives. The BBC's attempt to spin the Trooping the Colour event as a triumph for the royal family has, backfired spectacularly. The public has pounced on the broadcaster's claims, flooding the comments section with proof that paints a very different picture. Attendees have come forward with first-hand accounts, exposing the truth. Over 90% of the crowd were tourists, not loyal royal supporters, and there was a distinct lack of cheers, replaced instead by an awkward silence and protest signs. Even a respected British journalist has corroborated these reports, further undermining the BBC's credibility. As the public continues to call out the network's clear attempts at a cover-up, the monarchy's media machine is unravelling before their eyes, leaving the BBC's reputation in tatters. The cover-up has completely unravelled as the public has exposed the truth. Eyewitness accounts and on-the-ground reporting have shattered the BBC's rosy narrative, revealing that over 90% of the Trooping the Colour crowd were tourists, not royal supporters, and there were no cheers, only awkward silence and protest signs. Even a respected British journalist has corroborated these details, casting doubt on the official version of events. The BBC's comments section is in chaos, as outraged citizens call out the obvious lies, demanding accountability for this blatant attempt to manipulate public perception. It's clear the monarchy's media machine is scrambling to contain the fallout as the carefully crafted illusion crumbles before their eyes. The BBC's credibility is really at stake here. The public is increasingly questioning the reliability and integrity of the BBC's reporting, as we've all seen from the backlash over its coverage of the recent Trooping the Colour event. Instead of presenting an accurate portrayal of the event, the BBC has been accused of, trying to spin the narrative, claiming there were massive crowds and enthusiastic cheers for the royal family. However, eyewitness accounts and visual evidence have actually exposed the truth. The majority of the crowd were, in fact, tourists, not royal supporters, and there was an eerie silence punctuated by protest signs, rather than the celebratory atmosphere the BBC had portrayed. Even a British journalist has corroborated these findings, which just further erodes the public's trust in the broadcaster's impartiality and commitment to factual reporting. The BBC's comments section is now in disarray, as people demand accountability and transparency from the institution that's supposed to deliver reliable news. The monarchy's public image is, quite tarnished after all this. The disastrous Trooping the Colour event has shone a harsh spotlight on the declining support for the royal family among the British public. Despite the BBC's attempts to spin the event as a resounding success, with claims of massive crowds and enthusiastic cheers, the truth quickly unravelled. Eyewitness accounts and social media posts from attendees have exposed the reality. Over 90% of the crowd were tourists, not royal supporters, and there were no cheers, only awkward silence and protest signs. Even a respected British journalist has corroborated these findings, which further undermines the BBC's transparent cover-up. The monarchy's media machine is now in full crisis mode, as the public overwhelmingly calls out the lies and the royal family's waning popularity becomes, undeniable. The importance of honest reporting can't really be overstated, can it? The incident with the BBC's coverage of the Trooping the Colour event underscores the critical need for truthful and unbiased journalism. When media outlets present a distorted or one-sided portrayal of events, it erodes public trust and undermines the very purpose of journalism to inform and enlighten the citizenry. Honest reporting, even if it paints an unflattering picture, is essential for holding powerful institutions accountable and giving the public an accurate understanding of what's truly happening. The BBC's attempt to spin this disastrous event as a success, when eyewitness accounts and social media evidence clearly show otherwise, is a concerning breach of journalistic ethics that really can't be tolerated. The public deserves reporting they can rely on, not PR-filtered narratives that obscure the truth. The public demands accountability from the BBC, and rightly so. The British public has erupted in outrage over the BBC's misleading coverage of the recent Trooping the Colour event. Eyewitness accounts and photographic evidence have exposed the network's attempts to spin the disastrous affair as a triumph, with claims of massive crowds and thunderous cheers for the royal family. However, Britons on the ground tell a very different story. Over 90% of the attendees were actually tourists, not royal supporters, and there were no cheers, only awkward silence and visible protest signs. Even a respected British journalist has corroborated these details, completely undermining the BBC's glowing portrayal. The public is now loudly demanding that the network address this blatant misrepresentation and be held accountable for its apparent cover-up of the monarchy's woes.